episode of Real Estate on the Road. Today I am driving to and from Everett, not super crazy, working with some first-time home buyers and just doing all the things that I do for my home buyers. So I was thinking of a couple of questions that I get quite a bit when I'm helping home buyers, and most of the time it's the timeline. For instance, once we decide that we like a house and we put in an offer, how long does it take to get into a home? And what are some of the next steps that you can anticipate as a home buyer? And so typically what happens is, if you find the home that you like, we put in an offer. Most likely it's going to be that day, and it expires within 24 hours. Default is 2 days, but I don't like the opportunity to have somebody shopping around my offer, so I try to do about 24 hours. So the seller has 24 hours to review the offer. Just drove by my husband as he was going to hockey practice, and either accept it, reject it, or counter it. And once they make that decision, typically, let's just say they accept it, then we move forward. We're mutual, pending, under contract. And so that's when the home goes from active online to now pending, or pending inspection if that's something the buyer has elected to do. The inspection is something I always recommend, just for peace of mind. Also, it gives you an opportunity to negotiate if you find any major issues, or maybe even small issues, but usually major issues, things like foundation, siding, roof, attic, crawl space. Those are some of the big things that I usually come upon when I'm helping home buyers. And then at that point, we can negotiate. Sometimes we negotiate a lot. Sometimes we negotiate a little. Sometimes we don't negotiate at all. Sometimes the inspection is just fine, and we're happy to move forward in that process. That is typically 5 days, and that's 5 business days. Default on the contract is 10 days, but we want to try to keep things moving along, and also to make your offer more competitive. A shorter time span makes it a little bit better to accept. That way, if the deal does fall through because of the inspection, they don't have to wait a full 10 days to get it back on the market. So that's the next step. Earnest money is due. So earnest money is generally 1%, but it can really be whatever amount you're comfortable with. But typically 1%, and that's money that goes into an escrow account, and it stays there until the closing of the property. That money typically goes towards your closing costs. So it's almost like a security deposit, or good faith that you are serious about the home and you intend to move forward. That is due within 3 business days of the offer getting accepted. So now we're past earnest money, we're past the inspection contingency. The next thing is the appraisal, if you are using financing, aka you're getting a loan to buy the home. So the appraisal is very important because of a couple of reasons. The lender hires an appraiser to go there and determine its value. And if that value does not match the contract price, meaning the price that you have agreed to, the buyer and the seller have agreed to, then we got to have a talk. If it's higher, everything's good. Fantastic for you as the buyer. You now have instant equity going into that home. If it appraises lower, then what happens is the buyer either needs to come up with the difference, or the seller has to come down in price. Another thing too is the buyer and the seller agent can fight the appraisal and say, hey, I know you said it's worth $10,000 less than what we've agreed to, but I have comps, meaning similar homes to this, that price close to or exactly the contract price. So I would really appreciate it if you considered these when you were assessing your value. Sometimes you can win it and then everything is good to go, and sometimes it's still a little bit low, and then it's up to the seller and buyer to figure out if the seller is going to come down or if the buyer is going to come up with a difference. So once we get through that part, another thing we're going to have to make sure is there are no work orders. So the work orders I typically see that come up, if any, are missing smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. So you definitely want to get that taken care of. It is a safety issue. And then in Washington, you need 2 straps on your water tank because we have earthquakes here. You know, it's funny though, we don't have earthquakes that much. I mean, I think the last earthquake that I can remember was like in 2008, like early 2000s. But we are supposed to have a massive earthquake one of these days. I've been hearing forever, you know, we're gonna have the massive earthquake, the big one, and it's not a matter of if it'll happen, it's when. Literally been hearing that for like 20 years, but it'll happen, and I hope everything is okay. But yeah, those are the 2 things that typically come up, so we want to make sure that's taken care of. And then once we get to the appraisal, we're almost in the clear, but don't celebrate just yet because things can still happen. One of the worst things that can happen is somebody loses their job, or someone decides to max out their credit card or buy appliances, right? So you do not want to be making any major financial decisions or actions until the numbers have recorded and the keys are in your hand. So please be good when it comes to money. Don't quit your job. Don't switch your job. If you're going to do anything crazy, talk to your lender and your real estate team first. So once we get through that, then it is the final walkthrough. So if there were any inspection things that you had negotiated with the seller, at that point you should be able to say, hey, have these things been done, and confirm them during the final walkthrough. Another thing is make sure there's no new issues from when you got under contract. And then another thing is to start getting excited because you're likely going to be moving into your new home in about 3 to 5 business days. Then after you do the final walkthrough, you'll go into the escrow office and sign your closing documents. And what's great about that is you get a magic pen and you get to sign your life away. No, just kidding. You get to sign a massive stack of paperwork so you can become a homeowner. And that'll take you about an hour to sign everything. And you'll have a notary or an escrow officer there to explain, you know, the documents as you're signing them. You always have to have a government issued ID with your photo on it. Make sure it's not expired. It cannot be expired. So driver's license, passport, not a Costco card. Has to be government issued, and you bring it with you, and then you sign everything that day. It is not the same day that you get keys. That is a common misconception. You do not get the keys typically on the same day that you sign. In Washington, there are a couple of steps that need to happen before you get your keys. So what will happen is the escrow company will take those documents. They will put it together with the lending documents, I believe. So lenders, escrow, if you're listening to this and want to correct me, feel free to do so in the comments. But they get the documents together, they send it off to the county, and then the county has to record the numbers. That just means that you transfer the deed numbers from the owner, the seller, to the new homeowner. And once the deed numbers are recorded with the county, the home is officially yours. And I get to make the amazing phone call to my buyer and say, congratulations, we're closed, you're a homeowner. So at that time, it's generally on closing day between 2 o'clock and 5 p.m. So expect to get a call around that time, and I can coordinate the key exchange at that time. Sometimes the listing agent just leaves the key like in a hide key somewhere on the property, sends me a picture that I can send to you. For me personally, I like to give you the keys. This is a huge milestone. Like, you're a homeowner now, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, or we just sold your house so you can get into your next stage house. It's such a great thing to celebrate. So I like to be there, give you your key in person, snap my pic of you said yes to the address. I don't have to share it on my socials if you don't want to, but I appreciate it if I can. And yeah, you're a homeowner. So that's the process, that's the timeline. Typically that takes about 30 days from when you get your offer accepted to getting your keys. The closing date is always the goal. Sometimes things happen, right? Sometimes it's a lending thing. Sometimes it's a seller needs more time because of XYZ. Sometimes it's a buyer thing, but we can't move the closing date if not everybody is on board. So it is assigned and agreed upon and sent to escrow, and then everybody knows when the closing date has been moved to. But the reason why I say that is because, like, be flexible, because maybe you hired a moving truck and then all of a sudden you find out, oh, we're not closing for a day or two. Know that you might have to change that. But in most cases, we stay on track with closing day. You will close between 3 and 5 p.m. that afternoon. Legally, the seller has until 9 p.m. that day to vacate the property, but in most cases, sellers are out of there. I did have a horror story at one point, which I will share in the future, so be sure to look out for that. But yeah, that's pretty much the start once your offer is accepted. If you want to know more tips about home buying, home selling, investing, maybe you have a home that you need to sell because you had a loved one pass away and you're the power of attorney, reach out. I've dealt with a lot of different scenarios, and I would love to help in any way that I can, but follow for more stories.